And there we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am Nate Fischler. I'm an Asia Pacific analyst here at RANE. I'm with my colleague, Chase Blazik, also an Asia Pacific analyst here at RANE. Today, we're going to be discussing some difficulties in China with respect to some military and personnel developments that maybe my colleague Chase here can shed some light on. So first of all, Chase, we had an interesting story. It's actually been ongoing for a little while now about a little incident with a Chinese submarine. Maybe you could tell us and the viewers a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. It's a really interesting story. We still don't really have confirmation of this. There's pretty sketchy sourcing in August. It was just rumors, and now the Daily Mail has come out and said something about this, but they're also not the best source on some news stories. So we're still waiting on full confirmation, which is difficult for such a sensitive story like this. But yeah, the story is a Chinese nuclear propelled attack submarine is believed to have been an entire loss. They got caught up on one of their own traps just off the coast of China. All those on board sadly perished. And the idea is this is not great for Chinese military readiness, right? China's Navy has had some pretty great advancements, especially in the last 10 to 20 years. They've really been working on it just for the greater modernization of the Chinese military in general, which is key to Beijing's goal of China becoming a world-class military, but also key to preparing for a Taiwan invasion if and when that comes. And losing one of your 6 nuclear attack submarines due to an accident in your own waters where you hit your own trap is not a great look, nor is it that, some of the sourcing cited by Daily Mail, which again, caveat on that one, suggested they also didn't have great emergency response capabilities and technologies on board, which is obviously critical during a war when nothing goes according to plan. This isn't great for military readiness in general. I will say it's not necessarily a death knell. China's anti-submarine warfare capabilities are also just as important that they've been developing, and this would be just as important in a Taiwan war scenario on some of these destroyers that are equipped with these anti-submarine warfare capabilities at trying to keep out, for example, U.S. Submarines, because I think the U.S. has somewhere on the order of like 50 nuclear attack submarines, and these ships would be much more well suited for searching for these submarines than other submarines. But nonetheless, it's certainly not good for China's naval capabilities because these submarines are also useful for patrolling waterways to attack enemy ships and to keep enemy ships from creating blockades in crucial straits like the Malacca Strait.
Right. Although, we can note here that if there are substandard safety systems on these submarines, a big accident like this might be just the kick they need in order to revamp those and improve there and maybe plug that hole. So we'll see what China does in response to this crisis, if indeed the facts we have are accurate.
I think on that point, it'll be difficult to tell if they learn their lesson here, but you're right, absolutely right. These kinds of incidents do tend to spur reform in all kinds of militaries, including China's. So that could be the positive sort of silver lining on this quite dark cloud, is that, you get better at this over time.
Right. Then maybe moving on to some personnel issues. So in recent months, of course, there's been headlines about top leadership in China, the defense minister, and before that, the foreign minister, both of whom are embroiled in a bit of scandal, and there's some question marks at the top of China's leadership. So maybe you can speak to that and maybe how it intersects with the military readiness angle.
Yeah, sure thing. I don't tend to believe much in geopolitical coincidences. There's usually some sort of line of logic connecting events. But these two separate disappearances do seem to have separate reasonings. Qin Gang seemed to have gotten involved in some pretty scandalous extramarital affairs in the U.S. while he was ambassador. There's a lot of espionage concerns about that from the Chinese government. It's unclear if the Chinese government knew about this before it sort of started going public on Chinese social media, starting in March, and it really hit a dull roar as the year went on. But Qin Gang was appointed back in December, so it's entirely possible they didn't know. But that's just as concerning that the Chinese Communist Party, which sort of prides itself on this extremely rigorous vetting process, for who is allowed to ascend the halls of power and in these high roles, and that Qin Gang got through that after the alleged events of his affair had already all happened in this surrogacy that you're not supposed to do it. It's illegal in China, but he went abroad and is believed to have helped his mistress do this. So all that is sort of concerning for information flows in China, which has been something we've been highlighting for a while, that as Xi Jinping's sort of echo chamber of close advisors around him grows stronger, and as he empowers the party versus the state, which is important to remember that the foreign minister is a state role, that his information flows might be quite over-tailored to him. He hears what he wants to hear, and other things that might upset him might not ever touch his desk. And then there's Li Shangfu, the defense minister. He hasn't lost his post yet.
Before we get there, let me
yeah.
interrupt for a second. Maybe you can speak a little bit about what is the national security concern with China? I mean, so, former ambassador to the United States, Qin Gang, had an extramarital affair in the United States, had a child in the United States. The child is a United States citizen by default. How does China view this scandal? What are the national security risks from their perspective, or political risk, or anything else you can see?
Yeah, well, I have to be clear. I'm not really sure about the legalities of this, because I believe his mistress was a Chinese citizen and he is a Chinese citizen. So from China's point of view, this is not a U.S. citizen. But you're right. The U.S. has different laws as far as where someone's born. So that is all sort of up in the air. But in general, there's three strikes against him here. One, the extramarital affair in general. Xi Jinping's been trying to push this sort of idea that cadres and the party needs to be above the rest of the populace. They need to be moral, shining examples for the people to look up to. That has not tended to be the case for cadres as long as the party's been around, but that's at least what they're trying to uphold or instill confidence in the people with. And having the foreign minister, one of the top officials, be seen to have a quite glaring alleged moral deficiency here, is not great. And then there's the idea that he had a child, or helped a woman have a child out of surrogacy, which is illegal in China, but not in the US. So he, crossed borders in order to circumvent the laws of China, which is how you could view this if you were in the Chinese Communist Party. And then the espionage risks, right? There have been rumors, and I think at this point they're just rumors, about his mistress being, a CIA informant or a plant or a spy or all these things. And so even if all that is completely untrue from the Chinese Communist Party's point of view, it is very much a concern of theirs that he had this affair in the United States, which is China's strategic rival. So espionage, to be honest, should be at the top of their mind. So there's a number of strikes against him here, which it seems like even if they wanted to keep him on board, and this has nothing to do with politics, they simply couldn't.
All right. Well, let's move on to the defense minister then, Qin Gang. Also, he's not been seen in a while. What's going on with him?
It seems like run-of-the-mill corruption. That it's this his sort of falling out of the public limelight. He hasn't been, demoted yet, but also a number of other officials have been demoted in the PLA rocket force, which is in charge of their missile arsenal, including nuclear as well as conventional missiles, and which would be critical to a Taiwan invasion. There have been a number of demotions and sudden firings. The two heads of the PLA rocket force, both the government head and the political head, because that's how bodies work in China, or government bodies, they were both replaced, and they were sort of career rocket force people, and they were replaced by, I believe, a Navy and an Air Force person. So it really shows the degree to which, if this is all just related to corruption and related to basically procurement, bribery, giving people certain positions based off of their connections, nepotism, all that stuff, we don't really have a deep idea of exactly what they're concerned with here, but some sort of corruption, nepotism. If that's all true, it really hit the highest ranks of power in the PLA rocket force, which is not great for their readiness for war. In the short term, this sort of mix-up can definitely hurt readiness, right? Because these people who are veterans in the rocket force are replaced by outsiders who assumedly have no knowledge about how to run the rocket force, which again is critical to a Taiwan invasion. But in the long term, if this is a corruption investigation, and if they are targeting the right people, this could help with readiness, right? You clear out the driftwood, you make it more of a well-run machine, and hopefully in the 5 to time span, this actually helps with readiness rather than the short term in which it hurts.
Now, where did Chin come from before being appointed defense minister? Was he in the rocket force, or what was his prior position?
Yeah, Li Shangfu, he was in the equipment development department. So sort of this procurement role. He also had a 31-year tenure, and I believe it was the Xichang Satellite Center. So helping with space launches, a lot of the stuff which is very important to China and is sort of associated with the rocket forces and in this sort of the space program of China. And a number of the people who have been demoted, or I should say fired, and investigated in the last few months have been people who also had some tenures that overlapped with his at the Xichang Satellite Center. So there's just a lot of rumor mill stuff. All we can do is sort of try and connect the dots with that, that meme with the red lines going all over the map. There's some conspiracies going here, but that's all we can do at this point is try to connect their professional backgrounds. But it does seem a lot of these folks had connections to Li Shangfu in some capacity, and not just during the period in which the corruption is alleged to have happened from 2017 to 2022, but going way, way farther back.
Okay, and of course I misspoke talking about Li Shangfu, the defense minister of China, and that's about all the time we have. So thank you very much for joining us. If you'd like to peruse our analysis on this and many other geopolitical topics of the day, please feel free to check out our content at worldview.stratfor.com, or you can learn more about our business services at ranenetwork.com. Thank you, everybody.